All right, hello and welcome everybody. I have something for you today, a bit of a follow-up on my previous video about the whole Godot situation. So what I did is I went and I found a video where someone had recorded, I say someone, but the name of the guy is Bryan Lunduke. He covers open source stuff in general, and he was good enough to record the Twitter space that the Redot people held on Friday. And so I just wanted to summarize that for you. I'll also have a link to the video in question in the description, so you can go check it out yourself and see whether you agree with my what do you call it, like assessment of what they've said. So yeah, just a quick recap. About a week ago, a little more than a week ago, one of the Godot community managers created this post. Is like, hey, let's show off the most woke stuff we've got here on our engine. I guess we're a woke game engine, so let's show off the woke stuff that you've got. And then when they got a little bit of pushback, they started banning people like crazy. The company then provided a very non-apology apology after the dust kind of settled. And what ended up happening is that this group of people, Godot is a free and open source game engine, game development engine. And what Redo or whatever, so during the space they actually said there's not really any generally agreed upon way of pronouncing their names so far. So, I'll just say Redo from here on out. But basically they said we're going to fork Godot. We're going to start developing it on our own. We're going to release a Twitter space on Friday. And we're going to, have our website and stuff going from there. So I went, and this video is about 39 minutes of kind of monologue from a couple of people from Redot. And then there's about 20 minutes or 23 minutes of questions. Most of the questions are from Bryan Lunduke himself. So there's a couple not from him. Then after that, there was some kind of issue where it seems like things froze up. And that's where Lunduke ends his recording. I'm not sure if they came back after that or not. I couldn't necessarily find. It looks like the recording ended there. At least Bryan Lunduke's recording did. What I'll do is, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, it might be possible to find a recording of that space on Twitter. So I'm going to see if I can take a look for that, and I'll post a link to that, and we'll see how the length matches up with what Lunduke posted. So let's just go through the points that the Redot people made, in order, roughly, and I'll just kind of talk a little bit about what I think about that. So, number one, according to the Redot people, they have about 4 to 5 coders that are working on this project right now. People who have many years of experience in, say, C++ and stuff like that. Their goal for the moment is to maintain compatibility with the core code of Godot. So they're not going to. Their plan right now is not to make any major changes to the engine, but merely to provide an area to do 2 things. Number one, to separate politics from the art. And I don't want to get into it too much here. Maybe I'll do that on my sister channel, but where I talk more about political and economic stuff in detail. But what I will say is that people who say that all art is politics, or all anything is politics, are making an argument that really proves a lot more than they really think it is. I think they're making a mistake there, and they're also making an argument that would have been made by some fairly awful people throughout history. So I feel like that's not a very good position to take. And so I respect Redot's objective to try to make something that isn't explicitly political with the art of game making. But the other thing they want to do is they want to serve unheard Godot coders. And what they explained is something that's been happening in Godot is basically this. Features in the engine and the direction of the coders in Godot has been focused a lot on places where the big developers want more functionality and they're willing to pay a lot of money to get it. Redot said that their goal is to try to be a little bit more community-based and not, have their coders be basically, proxy coders for hire for big business. And so what they want to do is they want to focus on the changes that the community has been desiring and has been, so far not served particularly well. They're going to try to make their code, when it comes out, also compatible with Godot, so that there can be back and forth communication between the two engines at this point, which is a good policy, I think, to start. We'll have to see how things go on both of their sides to see which side makes more progress here and there. Apparently, according to the Redot people, there are a lot of people who are working on Godot who haven't had the changes that they've made, the code that they've created, added to the engine yet in any official sense. And so on Redot's side, they're trying to push a more like Linux package type of distribution system where the engine is the base and then you can add things onto it at will, basically. And what they're hoping that'll allow them to do is basically find some of these unheard coders over on Godot and say, hey, come on over here. If you can package this in such a way that it can be modular with the Redot and possibly the Godot engines, then that can be part of what goes up in Redot. So it's a little bit more of a distributed business model, which has upsides and downsides. Let's see. One thing that they said is that they don't hate Godot. I mean, they wouldn't stick with Godot if they hated Godot. What they are doing is what people should do in an open source community when they don't agree with the people that are running a certain fork of an engine or any program whatsoever, is to fork it themselves and take it in their own preferred direction, or at least try to. And to be fair, I was a little bit worried that Redot was going to be like, because what can happen when the pendulum swings one way is that the people who get angriest are the ones who want to push the pendulum the other way, right? And so, I was worried a little bit that Redot would be like, yeah, we're going to be we're going to be more anti-woke, and to be fair, anti-woke people would definitely have the right to behave that way, as long as they do so in a voluntary sense and create their own fork to be anti-woke. But that doesn't appear to be the direction that the Redot people are taking it. They're trying for a separation, and this is hard to do these days because there are so many people who want to be activists. But at the same time, I think that the activists who say that all art and all everything is politics are really making that mistake. And so, I'm hoping that the Redot thing works out well for them. They are trying to avoid drama deliberately. They're saying that it's detrimental to developers to have all this drama going back and forth. They want to focus on games. They want the people that work with Redot to focus on games. They were talking about possibly creating a free game dev academy and having people work on that. The name they threw out was, and it's not them, but I think it's someone that was a supporter of theirs who's like, oh, we could set up a Redot Game Dev Academy, and I'll see if I can find a link to that, and I'll put it in the description. I think it was still very much in infancy stage during the space, so there was no link or anything like that. They're talking about other things, like creating a podcast to talk about developments in the engine. But one thing that they really emphasized a lot was transparency. They're saying that they want to be a lot more transparent and user focused. And again, this is one of those things that a lot of people make promises this way. And so we'll have to see whether they actually deliver on those promises. And, they might not. We don't know yet. But they sounded like they were pretty well-intentioned in that direction, that they wanted to be more transparent. And because they were more transparent, they thought that they would be less vulnerable to this kind of short-term drama appearing. Basically because people are going to know what's happening more, and there's not going to be this little group of people that are kind of trying to subvert the engine in secret, basically. One thing that I found is both a good thing and another kind of double-edged sword here is that one thing that they're doing is they're trying to make sure they have a successful build-out before they worry too much about a method for raising money. Now, one way to do this that would have been perhaps a little bit scary would have been like, oh yeah, we don't have anything to show you, but please send us money. And they're not doing that, right? So that's a little bit reassuring. At the same time, the fact that they don't have anything set up right now and that they're waiting until they have a full successful build, and then later after that they're going to create methods for people to send them stuff, might also hobble them in the sense that there's just not enough funding to do what they want or need to do. So I'm, again, double-edged sword, because it's a good sign that they're not like, send us money and we don't have anything. And they're also like, well, we want to get something first, and then later on we'll think about how to get donations. Hopefully they're not too slow on that, because, it'd be nice if they have some good results for them to be able to start funding themselves, which is going to be the hard part, because Godot already has a large number of, external supporters. And so Redot is going to have to build that up back from the ground up. And the more they wait, the lower the the motivation of people to go over to Redot is gonna wane while the story kind of dies down. Fair enough. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, they're trying to avoid a pay-per-feature model where like developers say, "Hey, we'll give you X dollars if you put this feature into the main engine." And they also talked about their moderation policy and their code of conduct ideas for their website, Discord, stuff like that. What they're saying is that they want to avoid having a strict code of conduct that can be kind of twisted around to attack certain people for certain positions. They want to have a rather like lenient punishment policy for failure to abide by a very broad and easy to abide by code of conduct. Basically, the phrase "don't be an asshole" showed up in the stream, so something like that. They're saying nobody will get banned for a first offense unless that first offense is really crazy. And then only if there's, we'll start with a timeout. We'll start with reaching out to them, and then we'll see if we can get these people to, act reasonable again. And, that's another one of those things where a lot of people say that, but who knows how well they actually implement it. It'd be nice if, even for people that, you or I might disagree with, for them to at least be given a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, as long as the things that they do are relatively minor in nature, saying something a little bit mean or something like that. You have to put up with a little bit of flaming on the internet sometimes. Yeah, so they said they wanted to have the word gracious appeared a couple of times, and restrained for their moderation with no hard, detailed, long code of conduct. So yeah, that's what I mostly got out of that hour-long presentation. If you want to go take a look at it, I will put a link to Bryan Lunduke's video in the description, so you can go double check what I've said. I don't want to spend too much time on this because they're still very much in the infancy stage, and for instance, there already is like some cryptocurrency thing called Redot, and so like they're trying to figure out, I think, what to do with their website. I think they have redoengine.org, I think. But like it was working on Friday and it was not working on Sunday when I was writing my notes for this episode here. So yeah, it's a little bit of a hiccupy start, but they at least seem to have their heads in the right place. There's the vague appearance of that. They have a few coders, so there's not just like some guy flying by the seat of his pants. They mentioned that that one or more of their coders have like 20 years of experience in programming C++. And if you use Godot, you know that they have something called GDScript, which is their own special scripting language. And they also let you code for the language in C#. And so you might be asking, well, wait a minute, why is C++ coding experience a boon for Redot? And the answer is actually that if you look at the engine itself, if you go over to GitHub and you look at Godot or you look at Redot, most of the code that makes Godot work, as a thing that you can make games on top of, is actually in C++. There's a few other types of code in there, but when I checked Godot, they have a bar that says, what percentage of all of our posts are language X versus language Y versus language Z, and C++ was way at the top. I'll try to post a picture of that right here, if I can find that source again, and so you'll see what I mean. So they do need like C++ expertise, because the C# stuff is for the users of Godot or Redot to make their own scripts on top of the existing executable, the engine itself, which appears to mostly be in C++. So far, some good appearances of things. It's going to be a question as to whether they can actually, deliver on those promises. It's going to be a question as to whether they can maintain a politics-free or relatively politics-free setup. I like their idea of becoming more modular and Linux-like. So the only other video of Bryan Lunduke's that I've actually watched is his 2024 Linux Sucks video, basically, where he goes through a bunch of bad stuff that's going on in the Linux community. And I will note that I'm not a huge Linux user, but I do have a machine that runs on Arch Linux for me to do some of my writing and stuff like that. And Arch Linux wasn't mentioned in the bad things that are happening in Linux this year video. So, that was mild, what's the word? Mildly reassuring. So, yeah. I'll have links in the description for the video. And I'll also put links in for their maybe they have like maybe their website's up, and I'll see if it's working. If it's not working, maybe I'll omit it for the time being. But I was getting a DNS error, so that can be something where your website is just not configured properly, and you have issues with that. Hopefully they fix that soon. But that's the situation that it was in on last night when I was making notes and watching Bryan Lunduke's video. So yeah, looks possibly promising. They've got a slightly different take on how they want things to go forward with Redot as compared to Godot. They have some things that are going to be hard promises to deliver on, but keep an eye on them and see how they do. They're not reacting to Godot in a way of let's swing the pendulum in the opposite direction. They're trying to actually maintain a low politics feel for the project itself, and it's open source, so let people do what they want with it. It's one of those things where there was a big spike in interest, and hopefully what'll happen is that they'll get enough out of that they can kind of get themselves moving, and have some competition, and maybe even some help back and forth, because they did say that they wanted to have the ability to have code move back and forth from Redot to Godot, or from Godot to Redot, and have that compatibility maintained for the time being. It would be a little bit disconcerting if their initial plans were to completely revamp the engine to make it so that Godot users would need to relearn or learn an entirely new engine if they wanted to switch over to Redot. So again, looks pretty good to start. Some difficult promises for them to keep. I'll put in the description also if I can find a link to the actual XSpace recording. Those don't usually stay up for very long, so you may have to check that out earlier. Maybe I'll copy or save it or something like that if I can. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how that XSpaces thing works that well. I've only used it. I've only attended as a listener a couple of times on that, and I don't exactly know if you can save or download the audio file or what after it's done, and it might disappear after a fairly short time. So I'm gonna go check on that. But that's my thoughts for today. Tomorrow, so I did a video last week. It's funny because I only started doing daily videos last week. So everything I did last week, right? But I did a video last week about localizers, and someone put a fairly nice comment that they thought that video was useful for them. So what I think I'm going to do this week is I'm going to make one, maybe two videos talking a little bit about kanji study, because it's something that I've been doing a lot, and it would allow me to at least explain a little bit about how different kanji dictionaries work. Because the cool thing about kanji dictionaries is that you don't just use your kanji dictionary lookup method in a particular dictionary. You can use it in online dictionaries sometimes and stuff like that. So I don't know. I was thinking about something along those lines, and then I don't know. There was this weird story from John Delarose this morning about getting banned from Kickstarter, and so I'm looking into that. I've emailed him and I've emailed Kickstarter, and I'm going to see if I can maybe make something interesting for you guys on that end. So yeah, that's part of what I'm planning for this week. I'm going to try to do another book review as well. I'm a little bit torn between doing the first Lensman and the possibility of doing something else. I've been thinking about rereading On the Beach by Neville Shute recently, and so I'm thinking about that one as a possibility. And then I'm also going to start reading Ryan Williamson's book, Doomsday Recon. It's not just Ryan Williamson. There's another author, but I don't know his name offhand. I read Ryan Williamson's book, The Widow's Son, a couple weeks ago and did a review of that. And so, that one was rough in a lot of ways, but this one, I haven't read it yet, so I don't know. But he said it's a little bit more polished, so I meant he responded to the video, basically. So, yeah, that's... or did he respond to the video or did he respond on Twitter? I don't know. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you like what I'm doing here, if you've enjoyed this video, if you're still here, if you feel like supporting the channel, you know what to do. And so I will hopefully I'll see you tomorrow with something useful about kanji reading. And until then, see you later. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.